Dear diary, dear diarrhea, diary full of shit. Just play along with myself and I. No one else. You know, I'm so legit. Just watching some YouTube. Uh, Lowering myself into a stupor. I probably won't be able to drink much tonight. But tomorrow, I'll start early. I swung by the liquor store, which was open today for some reason, and they sell that Kraken. And I'll get started, early tomorrow, like at 7 or 8 o'clock. Just drink all fucking day. I got plenty of food. I got everything I need. Won't need to drive anywhere. Not that I would do that, but. Didn't you get a DUI? Yeah, but I told the story about that where it was kind of a fucking stupid deal. Where, I never drove drunk like into town, right? I was just driving to the intersection and back. Yes, it was a public road. It's a dirt road. And it was in a registered vehicle. It wasn't in a tractor. Although you could probably get a DUI for operating a tractor on a public road. You can do it how you want on your private property, but at least for now. And I wrecked, and somebody saw it. And, called the cops, which I understand. It's like, okay, this guy obviously, saw the scuff marks, in the ditch, and the Jeep landed upright, and there's me walking, and it's like, I get that, you know what I mean? Well, why didn't you just stop and say, hey, bro, you okay? Well, because they know, I don't know. I might not be okay, but think I am. So they just call the cops and let the authorities work it out. Well, there you go. But, so it's ironic, Yeah, but that was like my thing. I always made sure I never had to leave the house. But I got these 2 vehicles that I would drive every week. Only got 1 now. I still got the Jeep. It's parked out there. I haven't done shit with it because that's kind of what I do, with my life. Anyway, shit. So much potential, and I don't care. I had this figured out, 10 years ago, what the rest of my life is going to look like, how I'm going to feel, 20 years from now, right? I'm me, okay? I ain't that guy, and I ain't that guy. Sure as hell ain't that guy. I'm me. I'm better than fucking all of you, even that guy. So, because I have staying power, I can stand the test of time. I can play the long game, whatever that looks like. Do I want to grab the next gear, or do I want to just, fuck around and waste my entire life? That's my decision. And I have the ability to know what that's going to look and, more importantly, feel like. And there's probably some naysayers out there saying like, well, you sure post a lot of YouTube videos. What if you didn't have that? Then I'd waste a lot less time posting pointless YouTube videos. But anyway, so that's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and drink today. This will be kind of a half-ass attempt. And then tomorrow, I'll tie into it like a fucking, what have you, alcoholic. It's genetic. It really is. Sorry, Katie Boo. Especially if you like to tie one on every now and then, or maybe have a glass at the end of the night. Oh, shit. Now, I can offer advice and say, look, I know you think this. I know you feel that. Especially when you're under the influence, you go through phases. You think you're smarter than you are. You think you're funnier than you are. You think you're tougher than you are. You think you're invincible. I know all those fucking phases. Well, let me tell you something, Jack. You're always going to be an alcoholic. And his name isn't going to be Jack. It's going to be Oliver if it's a boy. If it's a girl, his alcoholism will be different. It'll be more secretive and shameful and more of a cover-up. Sort of crying herself to sleep at night versus, yeah, hold my beer, bro, until eventually, it'll turn into him drinking alone, and, it's not hold my beer, bro, because there's nobody around to hold his beer. But, you know, he'll be just sitting there like reminiscing, you know, like I could have been, I should have been, I could have been if I wanted to be, and just whatever the hell he's going through. And you're probably thinking, well, is that what you did? Nope. I just know the game. So I didn't read the manual. I just know it. For some strange, mysterious, unknown reason, I know things. What do you think about that? You know, the rules get applied to me, but they don't actually apply to me. We good. Fuck off. Not trying to ruin anybody's vibe. I'll just be sitting over here, you know, with one hand in my pocket, one, dear God, want to hold my shoulders up high or stand with my feet slightly wider than the shoulder width apart. And God forbid I walk for swagger, because that's just the way, you know, a person walks with their chin up and their shoulders up. Wouldn't want that now. You know, so I'll just be over here hating on life, quietly plotting my revenge on the world. You don't have to worry about guys like me. We're cowards. So, yeah. But anyway, we just sit here in the shadows as quietly defeated foes, and we are foes, you know, on society, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you really want that asshole breeding? I didn't think so. Some chick said that, some comedian. I heard that somewhere. You know what? I'm sorry. I'd have to agree. I mean, there's some things are genetic. Some things, you know, you're an old person. Like today, for example, my dad saved the box. He's like, that's a good box. I'm going to save that. And I recognized that in myself. And I said, man, that sounds like something I would say. That's a good box right there. I'm going to save that. The glue, you know, it's fabricated well. They use plenty of glue. You know, the thickness of the corrugation, you know, corrugated cardboard. This box is something that you might need to use for something someday, you know, without being stupid. You know, you don't want to be a box hoarder, you know, but it's like, you know what, this is a decent box. You know, it's not like huge, but it's not, you know, it's in the Goldilocks zone. Not too big, not too small. Get your mind out the gutter, blah, blah, blah. Because my mind's in the gutter, so I always assume everybody else's is. But, and it's good to think in those terms. You know, the lowest common denominator, even if that's not truly who you are and how you think, it's good to know that there's a lot of people out there who do. And that's how they internalize the world. I like that, using that word, internalized, as opposed to that's how they see the world. No, that's not how they see the world. That's how they internalize it. It becomes a part of them. So, and I'm guilty of it too, to a degree. You know, because I'm human. I mean, yes, there's the outer space thing, but, you know, I have to function here as an earthling. So, anyway, so what's your parents' space aliens too? I don't think so. I think I was beamed down, like in the movie War of the Worlds, like the new one with Tom Cruise. I think it was something like that, where I was like, you know, and yeah, that's what I think. And I've already discussed all that, you know, like give me my laser and my cape. Maybe that's what that dream was the other day, you know, radio waves. Radio waves, what's that? That's not super duper technologically advanced. I mean, it might not be super feasible to, you know, use during, you know, like crowd control or wartime, but, you know, the technology is there. We get it, you know, versus, you know, alien beings, you know, who are pulling themselves through space-time, through nuclear decay or whatever. You know, and there's something to that. You know, like I said, I consider myself a Christian, just a bad one that kind of throws a monkey wrench into things. Now, you could say, well, those are spiritual beings, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't have the horsepower for that. I'm not interested. I don't know. I don't care. I don't want to know. I'm not interested. Anything I might stumble across, I might sort of quietly take a side note of that. But I don't think about shit like that. I don't think about that epic UFO encounter that I saw that one time. Twice, actually, because the one time when I was driving, I was like, shit, I got to get this on camera. You know? But the one time, because they were moving. I've told this story before. It's across the whole thing. It's like, that's typical. No sound. Not only could, you know, any human body be able to take that, you know. But no craft that human beings are capable of building at this point in time could withstand at that speed, that acceleration, that G-force, that directional change. And I saw that with my own fucking eyes. I was not a shooting star. Shooting stars don't do that. Neither do satellites. You know, so, you know, I saw something that a lot of other people have seen, that I've heard them talk about on, you know, UFO encounters. Only I'm not the UFO enthusiast who wants to believe and build this narrative around it. I just saw what I saw. That's it. No more, no less. I don't care. It goes no further. You know, like Bigfoot enthusiasts who, for some reason, have encountered Bigfoot 10 times, you know, in their life. And it's always just some vague, well, he came and he went and blah, blah, blah. He dragged his hand across my tent. His hand must have been 12 inches across and blah, blah, blah. You know, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. I saw what I saw. So, anyway. And the orb, you know. Oh, yeah. And the shadow people. Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah. But anyway, I'm 11 minutes in. I apologize for my enthusiasm. Like I said, I'm lowering myself into a stupor. This is kind of what I do. I don't do this in public, though. You know, because when I was younger, you know, there was a time or two where I was drunk around people, and there was people that I didn't know. And one time, it was actually a waitress. I wasn't the designated, or I wasn't the driver or anything like that. She's all, you want another one? You know, meaning a beer or whatever. I kind of paused and looked at her, you know, and she was like, nah, maybe not. And this one, I'm not sure if it was at like a restaurant or if it was at somebody's apartment or what, but this one guy was like, you know, this guy right here, I can tell he's a thinker. You know how I can tell? Because I am one too. And I remember thinking, boy, you got me mislabeled. Now, the truth is, I kind of am a thinker, and that's exactly what I was doing, but I've never been accused of being a thinker, you know, so anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny. But, anyway, I'm watching YouTube videos, and I saved a couple videos in the Amen. Oh, so today and tomorrow, and then it's 4 weeks. That's what I'm going to give myself. You know, and I'll do the treadmill thing. I'll do the fast thing. I'll go ahead and get, you know, good, you know, full, like, you know, 30-minute workouts, you know, on the weights. I'll do shit around the house. I can fill my time. You know, because I know there's some naysayers out there. Look at them all. Who are like, dude, you don't stand a chance. You don't have a job. You don't have someplace to go, you know, during the week. Dude, you're going to fail. You're going to be drinking your ass off. You ain't going to be ready when it comes time to be ready. Oh, yes, I will. I've done it every single time. Every single time. So, you know, don't question me on that. I got this. But, anyway, I saved some videos on, like, the cost of living and stuff. Because I stumbled across that dude, and then I stumbled across some other shit. And, you know, I'm willing to believe that, you know, it's all planned, you know. I mean, a lot of that stuff almost kind of makes sense. Because if you let people, you know, do whatever the hell they want, people suck. So they're going to cut corners, and they're going to be doing shit that is fucking bullshit. So, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, you need to govern people, you know, from themselves. But, you know, people suck, you know. They will cut corners. They will cheat. You know, they will do what humans do. We're naturally lazy, you know, physically, mentally, spiritually. You know, it's just who we are. But, yeah, I think there's a lot to that, on the larger scale levels. These private equities buying up neighborhoods and trailer parks and, building neighborhoods and restaurants and shit like that, like restaurant chains, and shit like that. I get it. And I think it's a little bit of both, Yeah, they're fucking people over. Yeah, they're fucking corrupt as all hell. No, you don't, because politicians, shit, they don't want to be the weakest, new kid on the block, It's an ego thing. I think a lot of them are pure evil, like that dude who didn't know how to cook a fucking cheeseburger. That's very telling, Really? Really, bro? Really? Yeah. It's pretty basic. I don't know, my cook always makes our food, and, I'm a family man, so I, around the dinner table, I say things like, how you doing, Billy? You doing good? And Billy says, yeah, Dad. And he's all, good, good. And that's you doing your father duties, How you doing, Susie Q? You doing good, though, right? You're doing good. You're doing good, right? You're not doing bad. You're doing good, right? You're doing good, right? You're my daughter. You're doing good. I raised you, quote unquote, right? You're doing good. Yeah, Dad. Okay, cool. Thumbs up. And that's your idea of being a father. Instead of putting them on the spot and saying, so tell me about that, and this, that, and the other, And these are the people, and they, on a different level, I've talked about the levels, like your feet might be dipped into the lower level, but you're in the middle level. And people who are too far in the third level, and there's only three, their feet, no part of them is in the bottom level anymore, which is still where their wife and kids live. So they say things like, how you doing, Billy? You're doing good, though, right? You're doing good. You're doing good, right, Billy? Right, Billy? You're doing good, right? Thumbs up, son, right? Yeah, Dad, whatever. All right, good, yeah. Pat yourself on the fucking back. But, anyway, so they're dealing with corrupt, people. It's like, I'll be goddamned if I'm going to be the only, person worth $3 million, down here. Fuck no, I'm going to make, this is my career. This is not just a job. I'm going to make a life out of this. So eventually I expect to be making $9 million, a year. Or whatever, not 3, you motherfuckers. You ain't going to throw me out and disregard me. You must and you will hold me in high esteem, you fuckers. And it works like that even like on the local like mayor and governor commissions and, commissioners, commissioner of the sewage, system. You think that motherfucker doesn't have an ego? If that motherfucker has more than 20 people working for him, he thinks he's God. So I'm going to repeat that for the cheap seats. If any human being, if any human male, if he has cock and balls and more, testosterone flowing through him versus estrogen, if he has more than 20 fucking people working for him, he thinks he's God. And he shall be treated as such. Now, he can be, a fair, dude, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, now, don't take that out of context now. But, he's the fucking bee's knees. And in his defense, he does have skin in the game. He's probably making, a yearly salary or whatever of $100,000 or more. And he's got a wife and kids too. So he, in his mind, he has internalized that. This is who I am. This is my new minimum. I have to make a minimum of $100,000 a year. And they might, have been accustomed to a standard of living, of 100,000 versus maybe 70,000, right? And honestly, these days, depending on the state you live in, $50,000 to $55,000 a year is about the minimum as a minimal, living wage. After you pay your rent or mortgage or gas, groceries, all this shit, these little things add up. And God forbid, you want to save for retirement, right? Well, I guess I shouldn't use the Lord's name in vain, but it does. That's why I saved those videos and Amen Drop the Mic too. The cost of living these days is very high. But it's this whole shit, man. At the end of the deal, you're dealing with people, mostly men. And men have egos, and men have why would you settle for being worth a measly $5 million if your neighbor is worth $10 million? You are now in competition to the death with your neighbor, because that's who you fucking are as a human being. And you have no control over that. I heard this somewhere. I don't remember where, but I internalized it. It became a part of me. Your emotion, you don't get to control your emotions. Your emotion, you don't, let me rephrase that. You don't get to pick your emotions. Your emotions, for lack of a better word, they pick you. They just sort of materialize and they become a thing. And they're just always there. You don't get to choose them. Man, who the hell was it? It was that dude, I think. I don't remember his name. He's a smart dude. I've heard him speak on several occasions, but your emotions want to stay alive. They want to live and breathe and feed and reproduce, and just build themselves up. Your emotions, you don't choose that unless you're me, of course. But most meager, human beings, they don't choose their emotions. They don't. Their emotions determine who they are. My emotions do not determine who I am. I appreciate my emotions. Not that I'm an emotional dude, but I've experienced them. I've experienced, rage, jealousy. Oh, man, do I dare say that? Have I really experienced jealousy? I can't say that I have. Or envy. That's hard to believe. Maybe I have. Now, I just sort of said that, trying to be thorough and throw shit out there. I'm not honestly sure if I have ever experienced jealousy or envy. I mean that under the eyes of God and the devil. I don't think I have. Maybe there may have been like a few times when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old where I may have experienced a little bit of jealousy. But never envy. And there's like positive envy, like that's gonna be me someday, versus, negative, versus what the fuck, you really fucking shit, man, you lucked out, this, that, and the other. So I guess I take that back. I wasn't thinking when I said that. Maybe I haven't experienced every emotion, because those are powerful emotions. They cause you to do things that are life-changing, for you and whoever the target of your jealousy or envy is. Because you're usually, when you're jealous or envious of something, it's usually, there's a person behind it. It's the CEO, it's the boss. There's somebody, that you're trying to rationalize, You ain't fucking shit, man. You lucked out, this, that, and the other. I could do what you do except for this, that, and the other. I can honestly say, I don't think I've ever experienced that. Greed, I've never experienced that. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that. But, humans, man, they're complicated. The more complicated something is, the more prone it is to failure. And guess what? Emotions are powerful. They're life-changing. They can be good. They can light a fire under your ass and cause you to do things and make changes, or they can be detrimental. You can do something bad and throw your whole fucking life away because of a stupid, petty emotion. So, But anyway, this video popped up. What is his name? Joshua Fluke. I guess it was some bitch, petty, pussy, pathetic little man, who was an overachiever and became a boss, and made a post. If your first question is what's your salary range, then you don't care about the role. I'm judging you. Nobody works because they care about the fucking job. They care because they need to fucking pay bills, and they're trying to cause the least, damage, that they can as far as, trading in their time for money. You are a fucking bitch. Now, bosses in general tend to be overachievers. They do think differently because of all the human condition shit that I just mentioned. You don't fucking see that. Bosses don't fucking see that or understand that there's a lot of people out there who just want to get their fucking paycheck, fucking go home, buy their fucking six-pack on the liquor store on Friday and maybe a pack of cigarettes and call it good. Living for the weekend cigarettes and beer, there's really nothing wrong with that. Now, you need to save money for retirement, your fuck you fund, emergency fund, your kids, whatever. You need to be responsible, especially if you have other people involved. But even if it's just meager old lonely you, think about shit. What's your future going to look like? What's it going to look like, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially? But that's pretty advanced shit. A lot of people don't think about that. And bosses, due to the meager fact that they're a boss, means that they put in the extra time, they suck the extra dick, they kiss the extra ass, if that's how that worked. Maybe they earned every fucking inch of it, or ounce, or however you want to word that. But they don't get it, They worked 12 hours a day, for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, So when they encounter somebody who's 28 years old or 38 years old who just wants a 9 to 5 and make a livable wage, they don't get that. So, there's something to always remember about that bosses, I'm not, anti-boss, and all bosses are the devil, but just, my dad is a boss. He thinks differently. Like I said, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, this one sure as fuck did. Now, he's a reasonable dude. Like, I heard him talking today just about, respect, isn't, just because you're a boss doesn't mean, people need to bow down to you. I just caught it out of corner here. And my sister, of course, who's more liberal and left-leaning on the side, was like, well, you being, human being, it's like you're given respect, which I agree, but you can lose it. And in a lot of cases, once you lose it, you can never give it back based on what you did. So I just sort of, I'm at 20 minutes in. I'm going to call this good, but yeah, bosses think differently. Understand that. They don't get it. They think differently. Like my dad would be flabbergasted, just at the thought, because he had his 2 uncles who were alcoholics and stuff. So it's kind of like he's got that working for him. But let's say his 2 uncles weren't alcoholics, but for some weird, mysterious reason, I decided to just become one. It's like he that would be so far out of his realm of understanding, like I said, especially if he was a boss. If he was just Joe Blow six pack, who maybe got a little blitzed on the weekends, but no, he's a boss. And he had to rebuild himself 3 times. So he's made it to basically number 1 3 fucking times. My dad is a phenomenal fucking dude. And so was my granddad, and I hear my dad on my dad's side was, but I never met him because he died in a motorcycle accident when my dad was 16. He had a deer. So, I'm in a privileged position to understand that because I've seen that my whole life growing up versus somebody who hasn't. Who's like, man, bosses are just fucking assholes, man. They think they build themselves up and they forget, who they were and where they came from. Well, no, that's part of it. What you don't understand is, politicians, they didn't build themselves up. They were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and now they're dealing with other people who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they're thinking, well, if I'm only worth $3 million, I'll be fucking good goddamn, if I'm not going to be worth $10 million in 3 years. Hey, Billy, you doing good? You doing good? I mean, things are doing good, right? I mean, you're doing good. No problems, right? You're doing good, right, Billy? Yeah, Dad. Good. Fuck, I'm doing my job right as a parent, So I'm the fucking man of this household. You're just a bitch. But pardon my enthusiasm. I'm kind of getting into it here as far as alcohol. But yeah. It's funny because when I used to get drunk around people, I was more reserved. You know why? Because I understood that I was in public and I could make an ass out of myself. Now I just don't really care. I spew this shit. I press the red button and I post it. But like I said, with the one dude, man, this guy right here, see, he's dangerous. Yeah, I remember I forgot to mention that. He's dangerous. You know how I can, because he's a thinker. I can tell because I'm a thinker too. And it's, I don't know. So, because that's not really who I am, this whole banging my fist on the thing here. That's not who I am. I'm not behind that. I'm not behind that spew, that outburst. I'm not. So why do you do it? Maybe you are and you just don't know. No, the rules get applied to me, but they don't actually apply to me. I do it basically for theatrics. Maybe it is because I've got free reign, and I can blah, fucking this, that, and the other, but that's not who I am. I don't internalize that. I'm not behind that. I'm not tied to that. So even if I decide to get a little theatric and get a little loud and talking faster and blah, that's not who I am. When the shit hits the fan and it's game time and the helmet goes on, then the chin strap gets strapped on. That's not who I am. So, anyway. But, seems like there was some other shit that I wanted to say real quick. Mention. Maybe not. I think that's pretty much it. It seems like I was thinking about genetics or something. Bosses, they don't get it. And they generally don't. See, there's the guy who doesn't get it. Who's like, bosses don't just get it, man. Versus someone like me who's like, yeah, man, I mean, you put in your time. You sacrificed, But what you don't understand is what you do not get is that most people don't think like you, man. So, and I guess that's why I put it in the ASMR folder, just sort of like blah, because with my job and all that. Violent J from the Insane Clown Posse. When you do 90% of these businesses, nobody intended on working there, man. That's why I stress to my kids, you got to find something that you want to do, because that's pretty much what we do is work, And the only person who's killing it, is the person who owns that string of laundromats, And like there's some wisdom in that, But what he lost track of is the guy who owns the string of laundromats is, you fuckers just show up for 10 to 12 hours a day and just put in your fucking shift. Hell, you ain't even fucking working half the time. And they lose track of that, Just by the simple fact that they're a boss, They are an overachiever. They are a cut above. I'm going to say that again. They are a cut above of you, asshole. Mr. Joe Sixpack living for weekend cigarettes and beer. They are a cut above you. Admit that, understand that. If you want to raise yourself into the next level, then you do so. But as is, they are cut above you, period. Understand that. So, I guess That's all I gotta say. Have a good day. Holy shit. This is the longest audio presentation I've ever made.